Okay, good morning, everyone. Okay, we'll continue our book reading this morning, The Toyota Way to Service Excellence by Jeffrey K. Leica and Karen Ross. We're still looking at understanding the current state. Today on page 107, we'll be looking at reflection, understanding the current state, reflection. So the current state is starting to reveal itself, and the team is getting excited. People are getting excited. They are accountable for the process of discovery. Many things were clear to Leslie from the beginning, but she was not going to reveal her own observation. First, she was not certain of her own observation and wanted a real data and fact. Second, she needed to reach the numbers of team, how to see the state of their own processors. It is interesting that they live in the organization and yet had strong misperception. For example, assuming all the credit transaction processors do the work in the same way, following the SOPs. Through structured observation, it immediately becomes clear they were wrong. Leslie asked the question because she wanted public prediction. There was not to make fools. This was not to make fools of them, but so they could learn about the dangers of assumption and about the gaps between what they assume and reality. People learn more by becoming aware of gaps between what they think they know and what they actually know than by being consistently right. Identifying gaps and prioritizing what to strive for. When they returned from lunch, Leslie was pleased to see how obviously excited the team members were to continue their work. For the first time, they gathered around, chatting among themselves and pointing things out on the chart. After they all had finally settled back in their seats, Leslie said, "Team, I'm really proud of the work you did this morning. Looking at the process steps diagram, and the other charts on the wall, we can see how much we have learned already about the wide variation in the way credit transactions are being processed and what some of the problems are. Now, as a team, we need to decide what we want to tackle to make the process better for everyone, especially our customers." "Yes," said Tabitha, a little nervously. "I agree. But I was saying before lunch, we seem to have so many problems. How do we know where to start? We can't work on everything all at once, can we?" Leslie smiled and shook her head. "Tabitha," she said, "you are right. Sometimes when we have problems, we try to tackle a lot of different things and try a lot of different solutions all at the same time. Has anyone here ever experienced that?" George said, "Leslie, are you sure you don't actually work at NL Services? Every time our numbers dip down, corporate yells and scream so much that we CTPMs make a list of every possible problem and every possible solution, and we just start trying to do all of them as quickly as we can. We just throw things at the wall and hope something will stick." Laughing, Leslie nodded her head and said, "Jug, I promise you that I haven't worked at NL Services before, but I've certainly seen exactly what you're describing in many different places. And in my experience, it doesn't work very well. When we try to tackle too many things at once, we can't focus and we don't end up doing anything well. And we can't understand why something worked or why it didn't." Looking around the room, Leslie could see that the team was in agreement. "I'm going to suggest we try something different this time," Leslie said. "Let's decide together one or two problems to work on and go from there." She continued, "I know we have identified lots of problems. Can anyone think of a way that we could choose which way we should start with?" Kathy, who has been staring at the process steps diagram and run charts the whole time that Leslie had been speaking, suddenly turned to Leslie and the team. Leslie, she said, when I look at the run chart, what jumps out is that transaction with more than 10 lines take a lot more time to process. And we know that when there are problems with this transaction, our customers get fines from the state, and sometimes they are so angry that they change the credit transaction processing company. That's what happened 3 weeks ago with my biggest customer, EZ Credit. Errors on transaction with 10 lines or more is a problem. That's really bad for our customers, and it's really bad for us. Looking around the room, Leslie could see the team nodding in agreement. Getting up from her seat and going over to the process steps diagram, Jimmy zeroed in. Just look at this. You can see that none of the credit transaction processor do their work in the same way. It's no wonder that the run chart shows that there is so much difference in the amount of time it takes to process the credit transaction. And I can't tell you how often my customer call and complain that their transactions aren't processed on time. Maybe if anybody could work in the same way, it would take at least less time and we could get the credit transaction processed when our customers want them. Looking around excitedly, Tabitha said, maybe that's it. Our chart and graph are showing us that the two problems we should start with are fixing the problems with the transactions that have 10 or more lines, and figure out how all the credit transaction processors can do their work in a way that all the credit transaction gets consistently processed on time. If we can fix these two problems, our customers will be happier, and we'll be happier too. Chog, Lara, and Joe agreed with the credit transaction processors. If they could make a dent in two problems, they would certainly get fewer angry phone calls from their customers and from corporate. Okay, this is where we'll stop for our reading today. Remember last week, they were identifying and understanding the current state, where Leslie created a process observation form, both for time and also created a chart for transaction. So all these things were done to monitor how their work is being done and find out exactly where the problem is, which they actually did. On their flip chart down here, he said a flip chart note of problems and questions. The problems they actually found out from their research in the company is that one, the customers' data are being missing. You don't get to hear customers. Their email spreadsheet is hard, and they had a lot of interruptions while talking with other customers. So they began to ask questions. And they've also found out that different processors take different timing. So attending to their own customers or solving a particular issue when it comes to personal timing. So why is it like that? Why is that they don't have a standard structure or standard like SOP, standard of operation for solving a particular problem that everybody is meant to follow, instead of following their own thought and assuming that they know it, and let's just do it as email like instead of following the standard of operation. So all these things were the questions they asked and the problems that they found out. Then reflection in understanding the current state was where they started trying to identify these gaps and prioritize, which is where we read today, say prioritizing what to strive for. And at the end, Laura, one of the CTPMs, suggested that since they have so many issues with calls that are more than 10, or they have transactions that are more than 10, and their customers get fined, why don't they start working on just those two before they can start solving other problems that come with it. So that's what this place is actually telling us on the short story of Enel Service Incorporation. So it's going to be telling us, as we read further, it's going to show us how they conquered and brought solutions to what the problems that their company is facing with their customers. So that is just a brief summary of our reading today. Thank you.